Anyways, I just wanted to say before we jump into the whole ORBAT, welcome to the stream, and also, thank you for on behalf of the community of everyone who's following Ukraine for all the work you did during the first week of the Kursk invasion. For the people who doesn't know, Lovely Lad has been, and I'll try and share your Twitter here. So yeah, you've been doing a lot of ORBAT maps, or maps with ORBAT, and you did it every day the first week of the invasion, right?
Yep, I did it from day 1 to day 7, up every day. Yeah, it took a lot of time. After that, I thought it was better to focus on other things. It was too time consuming. Stuff had slowed down, but yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, did you try to share the ORBAT?
Yeah, sure.
So
I mean, I can show everything. Shouldn't be a problem.
yeah, so I asked you to come on because you've been basically collecting information of which units are in this operation, and I think it's interesting because there's been a lot of speculation also online about this, but you've been
Oh,
collecting a lot of information and you've done it very thoroughly. Maybe you want to explain to people first, like, what is ORBAT? What does it mean? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't know.
yeah. So, ORBAT, the direct definition would be order of battle. Essentially, an ORBAT of an operation will be the units involved in it. Usually there are more detail involved, like different echelons and reserves and stuff like that. But when we're referring to ORBAT here, we mean the forces that are actively deployed inside the operation. This would be the Ukrainian ORBAT here. I have two little visuals here. One is showing the forces the Ukrainian air assault forces have deployed, and the other one is more showing the ground forces elements. Of course, these are just the big units. There are some smaller ones. I've tried to include as many as I can in these particular robots. Now, of course, there are more, a couple of few units from missing, but that's the general gist of what an ORBAT is. As Erlend said, yeah, you can say Erlend.
No, I just wanted, what was your method of, finding the information? And I think we lost him. No, there, we lost you for a sec.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think
yeah.
you were saying
So
something.
yeah, I just wanted to ask, what was the data collection method that you used when you were, basically doing all your research and verifying your sources?
I mean, over the last week, there have been a lot of different methods used for these. Some units like to post that they like to post information about their involvement in operations, like on Facebook pages or Telegrams or whatever. Sometimes we see MIA reports, which would basically be missing in action, like a soldier from this unit was lost in this area. That can be used for that. Units that for fundraisers, like a unit, a particular battalion might want a pickup truck. On the first week, a lot of Russian telegrams were sharing a lot of false information about the Ukrainian ORBAT.
I think we had a little bit of connection issues there, so we lost you the last 10 seconds, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's probably the share screen. Erlend,
Okay.
do you have the images? Maybe you should try to show them instead of me.
Yeah, I'll pull them up. No worries.
Okay.
You can just cancel the screen sharing and I'll do it. Yeah. If you just continue, and I'll get them up eventually. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm not sure where I stopped, but basically what I was trying to say, on the first week of the operations, a lot of misinformation, blatant disinformation, info ops, and a lot of different stuff was popping up, which made collecting information very difficult. And Russian telegrams, which heavily rely on reports from officers in command posts, did not have accurate information because the Russians themselves didn't have accurate information, as EW and different systems had destroyed their ability for their intelligence to function. So a lot of units were misreported and other stuff like that. But by now we have seen have a very good picture on the units deployed at this point. And I think somebody mentioned 1,000 people, at least. I think they said at least 1,000 people deployed in Kursk. I would say that's way too little for what we have. So this is the basically these units in Kursk would be attached to the tactical grouping of Troop Sumi, including the Ukrainian Air Assault Corps, which is in another visual. Or this will be attached to this tactical command, and this tactical command would operate in Kursk, and tactical command Sumi would be in Kursk, and in it there will be a lot of units which were not all there on day one. Some came later. Elements of certain units came later. So to start off with explaining the ORBAT from the ground forces, I think that would be a good place to start. Currently, there is the 5th Assault Brigade, which unfortunately, just to be clear, we don't know exactly where all these units are operating in Kursk. We just know they're in there. So the 5th Assault Brigade has 2 battalions inside Kursk. There would be the 24th IDAR Battalion, which would be an assault unit, as it is part of the Assault Brigade. And they would have the 6th Assault Battalion, which is a Skval, yeah, which is basically Ukrainian battalions made of conscripts, highly motivated assault units, would say it like that. I think you may have talked about in the Tochnyi streams about the Ukrainians using a certain recruiting convicts for some battalions. Other than
Yeah,
that,
I don't think we talked about it. Maybe we did mention it last Sunday, but it's definitely been mentioned by several of the people that are, associates. And but yeah, which units are using the convicts? Because that's a new thing that happened not too many months ago. That former convicts were allowed to join armed forces.
yeah, I mean, I don't know every single unit that operates these Skval battalions. I know the 47th Mechanized uses them, the 5th Assault as well. These battalions are created and then attached to units, of course, after being trained and stuff like that. But I don't have details on where exactly they are deployed. All I know is about the 47th and the 5th Assault Brigade, which we just talked about.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read reports that they are highly motivated and it's been quite successful, but I haven't seen too many details. I have to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember one report from a local commander, and it was like, we have about 200 of these guys in one of our units. They performed like way above expectations, and they just lost their first guy. And like, I'm really proud of them. That's basically what he said.
Yeah, I mean, I'd assume they would be more highly motivated than a mobilized guy. They are out of prison. They might be better. And the reports I've seen align with yours, Joseph. But yeah, let's continue with this ORBAT here. Other than the 5th Assault Brigade, there are a bunch of other units. Like there are 2 TDF brigades, which are operating in there. It's the 103rd TDF, which was there for quite a while. It wasn't deployed recently. It has been there guarding the border. The unit we know that has crossed the border from the TDF brigade is the 67th Territorial Defense Battalion. And top of that, the 73rd Territorial Defense Battalion from the 101st Brigade has also been deployed in that area, which is kind of interesting in my opinion, as you could deploy a lot of units. Why would you choose to deploy territorial defense element? But I don't know what could have happened. Then there is a brigade which came under the radar for quite a while. It's the 61st Mechanized Brigade, which we barely knew even existed. It wasn't even a mechanized brigade when we knew it. It recently transformed into one, but it takes a major part in the operation. We know it played a role for the capture of Shuzda, the biggest town just across the border that Ukraine has captured thus far. It utilizes at least 2 battalions inside Kursk. The ones that have been confirmed would be the 101st Mechanized Battalion and the 99th Mechanized Battalion, both operating around Shuzda. Then there is the 22nd Mechanized Brigade. This unit, it has been major part of Ukraine operations since basically the start of the war, and it was one of the first units to enter Kursk on August 6th. It operates, except from the 3rd Mechanized Infantry Battalion, the 419th Rifle Battalion, also operates Polish PT-91s and T-72 AMTs with their tank battalion just across the border, which we saw in many videos how they were using them to take Russian POWs and stuff like that. Other than that, a unit that has been heavily disputed is the 88th Mechanized Brigade. A lot of people don't believe it exists, or at least they didn't believe that right before the operation in Kursk. The unit did have basically, it was kind of an information operation. Like they claimed they had M2A2 Bradleys, which they never had, and that was most likely to confuse Russian intelligence and stuff like that. But in reality, they were very poorly equipped unit. They were operating some weird tracks with BM-21 launchers on the back. As at this operation, I believe that it was for taking in Kursk. A lot of people disagreed with that, but after that, videos came from FPV strikes, Russian strike. I don't have the video, unfortunately, right now, but striking a Ukrainian pickup with a BM-21 launcher on the back, which we knew the 88th Mechanized Brigade utilized. Also, a bunch of Cossacks and stuff like that, which were from unidentified units. I believe that it could be from the 88th, just because we didn't really know who was using them, and a lot of units did get reinforced with MRAPs and equipment like that before the operation. But that's basically the main line brigades would be from the ground force would be these ones. Then there would be some separate battalions, like a new one that was recently that has also come under the radar for quite a while is the 33rd Mechanized Battalion. Militaryland.net did a piece which brought it to light. I didn't know it existed before that, and the funny thing is, an article from some guys that went to Kursk to do a piece. I don't remember who exactly it was. It specifically mentioned inside it that the information they got was from a paratrooper from the 33rd unit, and it was kind of weird to me because I was thinking of the 33rd Mechanized Brigade, but it was mentioned in this unit, which we didn't really know existed. It's an assault battalion, and it utilizes mortar IFVs. We've seen some of them get hit by FPV drones, but not much from the Ukrainians, as they haven't been posting much at all. Other than that, a bunch of more famous units like the 425th Scala Battalion. It's an assault unit which partook in 2023 counteroffensive. It utilizes M1117s. And yeah, it's a basic assault unit of the Ukrainian army, has partaken in many operations, very experienced, and now it's working in Kursk with the other units. The other assault unit That would be the last assault battalion, as we know, has partaken in Kursk, the 225th. Originally, it's from the 150th Mechanized Brigade, but this battalion is operating separately from them in Kursk. They have partaken in operations since day one. They have been given equipment from some Belarusian units like a Tur tank company. It's a tank unit, we don't know exactly its echelon, but they have operated 72s, other heavy equipment inside Kursk. Then there are the classic reconnaissance battalions. The 54th Reconnaissance Battalion has been in Kursk for quite a while. It's a major part of Ukraine's Operational Command North. And then there is the 130th Battalion. We don't know if the entire battalion is in use in Kursk. We know that Bravo team of the battalion was operating inside Suzda, according to multiple videos they posted. But yeah. Then for special operations, there is the first detachment of the 8th Special Purpose Regiment. I remember from Tochnyi actually geolocated a video from them ambushing a Russian truck just beyond Suzda. UAV units. There are a couple. So from 2023, every brigade under law was supposed to have a drone company, an attack UAV company, how they mentioned it. Some of them, of course, they don't always operate with their parent brigade. Like these units here, most of them don't operate with their parent brigade, like Corner Group. It's a drone unit which has got a lot of fame through the counteroffensive and then defending Donbass. It is not operating with its parent brigade. It's operating separately under the command of Tactical Grouping of Troops Sumy. There is also Project M2, another popular UAV unit, and the Dragons Group, which it's not a spot, but it's still an effective drone unit which is utilized in Kursk. The biggest unit, UAV unit, which I believe Ukraine even has, is the 14th UAS regiment. A regiment for UAV is something I personally haven't seen before, and it has been using anti-aircraft UAVs which struck Russian helicopters inside Kursk, which is something that Andrew really wanted to see. They were first struck in Kursk from, unless I've missed something, but a couple of them were struck there. Yes, that would cover the ground forces part of this. Then there is the Ukrainian air assault forces.
Yeah, the FPV drones attacking helicopters has been like in a focus both of Andrew and some of us here that we've been looking at closely, and we got the first confirmed one. Git geolocated it, and there's a couple of other, which I would say are highly likely that they struck the helicopter and took it down, but we need a little bit more evidence for battle damage assessment to confirm that they actually killed the helicopters. But there's at least one confirmed kill with an FPV drone. Then there's been like stories about one over Donetsk, which we haven't seen any BDA of, which was maybe 3 weeks ago or something. But yeah, this is a new weapon, and it's utilizing FPV drone platform, but it's very tweaked FPV drones. It's not the classical FPV drone. We know that they've been developing special FPV drones for this, so it's interesting. Anyways, did you want to go back to the airborne one?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So these guys, the air assault forces of Ukraine, spearheaded the operation in Kursk. There were a couple of battalions in the start of the operation. Now there have been confirmed to be at least 6 battalions of the Ukrainian air assault troops working inside Kursk. The 82nd has been the spearhead of the operation, especially during the first days, with its Striker APCs, the Western provided ones. They were the ones that actually breached the Surov vehicle line. It was built there since 2023, but was not properly defended, manned, or anything like that. So the Ukrainians were very easily able to breach the defenses with their striker APCs and moved deeper into Kursk. The unit that started was the 3rd Assault Battalion of the 82nd, but since then we know the 2nd Assault Battalion and the Air Mobile Battalion of the unit are operating inside Kursk. Of course, the entire brigade would have four battalions. Currently, we don't have information on the 1st Assault Battalion, but it very much could still be deployed inside Kursk right now. We just don't know about it. The 80th Assault was also there, like 1st or 2nd day. Now we know they're operating 2 Assault battalions, the 1st and the 2nd Assault Battalion. What a unit, just to finish with the 80th Assault, we have seen them operate French-provided VABs, which could be attached from the 46th Air Mobile Brigade, but there's no direct confirmation for that. So that just keep that in mind, because we've seen quite a few VABs in there. The recent addition to the collection here of the Ukrainian air assault troops is the 1st Air Assault Battalion of the 95th, which made its entry just a couple days ago. We've seen it operate with Humvees, mainly Humvees. I don't remember their other equipment, but yeah. Then, of course, on the far right, we have the 170th Logistics Regiment. We know the unit operates there. It's mainly focused on transporting equipment and logistics, but of course that's not quite the focus of this ORBAT. We don't have many details on the Ukrainian logistics units that are operating there, but I thought it could be interesting, so I put it there since it is confirmed. This is what we know. All this we talked about this far is what we know is confirmed. There have been some other units, which there are many indications that they could be operating there. This would be the 152nd, 53rd, and 54th Mechanized Brigades, which we've shared a lot of reports about, or even the 150th. A lot of these 150 brigades, we shared a lot of reports about them operating there, but we haven't really had too much confirmation. Another, of course, just Ukrainian Special Operation Forces, like we've seen, like DRGs make deep thrusts into Russia, like a unit we operates is the Da Vinci Wolves, I think. Da Vinci Wolves, which is a DRG unit, Special Operations unit that operates inside Russia. There are some other units like SPU Group Alpha, which are also operating there. They recently posted a video how they cleared a bunker with 103 Russian conscripts and FSB Alpha units near Sverdlink or whatever. And yeah, that's basically, I think what I forgot to include in the ORBAT was the 92nd Mechanized Brigade, which is operating more to the east. Near Giri, we saw one of its units get struck very heavily there. So this is something I forgot, probably because it's so off the frame. As for artillery units, stuff like that, we know 2S-22 Bogdanas, likely from the 49th, are operating there. And M777s from the 44th Artillery Brigade are there as well. Now, an estimation of the number of troops that are operating there would be, I would say, even with these many battalions, it's probably less than 10,000 troops, likely around potentially 8,000 Ukrainians inside Kursk, excluding logistics and artillery brigades. Yes, this covers pretty much everything for my report this week.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is super important to remember, and you made it really well in this presentation, that not if a brigade is present, it doesn't mean that the whole brigade is inside Kursk. And we've seen a lot of people on X and other places saying like, yeah, So Ukraine has this, that, and the other brigade there, which means that the whole brigade is there, or they assume that the whole brigade is there, and that that's why they come up with numbers of like 25,000 troops inside Kursk. And I think, yeah, you presented it very well, that there are levels to which how much of the brigades are deployed, and also sometimes it's just a battalion or two. So yeah,
or even less potentially.
yeah.
Yeah.
So does anyone on the panel have any questions for Lovely Lad before we move further?
Not from my side, but thank you very much for the dedication and the presentation.
Yeah, I want to say the same. Thank you so much for doing what you did the first week, and also continuing to give some relevant information. I think there's been a lot of misinformation about these things, and people have noticed you on Twitter as well, that you kept a consistent flow of updates and corrected information that was wrong out there. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my focus on the first days. I'm glad, I got some recognition from it online. I guess, it was gonna happen at some point.
Cool. Do you want to give any other comments about what's happening right now? Because we can kind of give maybe a little overview of things. I know, for instance, there's been reports that there's a bunch of UAVs harassing Russian troops in this area that are moving in and out of Koronevo. There's been reports of Ukraine being inside Koronevo as well, but I'm not sure if it's verified or not. And then on the eastern side, Ukraine has kept pushing towards Giri, where we had that incidents with BTRs. And yeah, do you want to give any comments to what you've seen?
I mean, I haven't been following the situation as closely as I did during the first week, but I know a lot of Ukrainian units are trying to secure the town of Koronevo. It's a very important town in the area, a very difficult choke point, which the Russians have put a lot of resources into holding. And the Ukrainians probably, as an estimation that you could prove around 5 to potentially 6 battalions are moving around Koronevo. We've seen more units move towards it. And yes, they want to secure its important choke point, and it would open up the route to Rulsk. But, other than that, I don't have much else information.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what happened the last few days. We had the bridges being struck, which caused massive disruption in the settlements in this area. I think it's 3 bridges now, and the Russians also have some engineering bridge deployed somewhere, but that has also been reported as struck by the Ukrainians. So the Russians are in a very difficult situation in this area, southwest of Koronevo.
Yeah.
Tochnyi is kind of very isolated right now, and Ukraine has been striking it a lot with even with JDAMs, and one of the bridges was also finally destroyed with JDAMs. So it seems like Ukraine has at least some operational room to fly in this area or in the border regions.
Yeah,
but yeah,
from what I've heard, this is information pretty early in the campaign, probably day 4, day 5. The Russians had a battalion of the 331st Airborne Regiment, so it's a VDV battalion in Tochnyi, which now is kind of stuck there. They've been trying to move it out. The elements from it have definitely passed, but a lot of troops are trying to get away from there right now. It's been a little difficult for them.
Yep, Ukraine did some excellent tactics here, in my opinion. Tatkino, of course, was one of the places Ukraine sent in the incursions in the past, and so the Russians have actually spent some resources on fortifying this.
Yeah, it's a good strong point there.
Yep. And now they're stuck, or at least partially stuck. It's really difficult to move heavy equipment out. A lot of personnel moving them out as well is going to be difficult with all the bridges broken. I mean, there are back roads here, but I mean, it's going to be really problematic. And we saw Russian mill bloggers inside this area as well who had some issues because of the bridges. So I think Ukraine has employed really good tactics here, and yeah, it's not gonna. When you are trying to defend in so many places, on top of that, you have this kind of dilemma: are you gonna, just abandon everything and leave? It's not making the operations that they actually have to focus on easier. But yeah, I think we're going to see this fall. I think Ukraine is going to, at least they might not move in very quickly, but I think the Russians are going to lose control over this area eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a discussion. It's almost practically 100% gonna fall, this area. And the conversation would be how to move from that area. I mean, the Russians cannot possibly supply their troops here. They're withdrawing units and supplies from the remaining bridges that they've set up. Of course, some units will try to hold it, but I don't believe that there is any chance they're gonna be able to hold around here.
Yeah, in my opinion, I don't think Ukraine should focus on trying to seize this area very quickly, but securing all the borders and keeping pressure on from all sides. I think that's probably going to be the main focus, and should be. When it comes to Koronevo, I think yes, it's tactically very important, because if you take it over, you're immediately pressuring Rilsk, and that's something the Russians are going to be. They're probably very scared of this. That's why they've been defending Koronevo so much. Rilsk is incredibly important for them in this area, because as you see there, it's basically a hub with major roads going in and out to each direction. So it's going to be interesting if Ukraine manages to take over Koronevo and push further up northwest. It's going to be difficult for the Russians to keep even Rilsk, in my opinion.
Yeah, and with some whispers of Ukrainian buildups around Khluikiv, we may see an expansion to the operation towards Rulsk.
Is that up here or?
Khluikiv, you're seeing it right there on the left. It's in Ukraine.
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah, and then in the east, what do you have to say about this? I mean, we had this overextension or some strange situation that happened in Giri where they got into an ambush pretty bad, but
Yeah, I mean, this area, Ukraine, I believe, has achieved its, at least partially, its operations goals in here. Operational goals have secured Suzda and many important defensive positions like heights. Unfortunately, the Russians have been putting pressure around Malaya Loknia with the 11th Airsoft Brigade, I think. But generally, I mean, the push towards Giri, Belits, and Belaya, I think that will continue here. Obviously, now we've seen the Russians' reports of them leaving Ulanok. We saw the tragedy at Giri. Of course, that was likely due to poor intelligence, which, especially in such maneuver campaign, can happen. The Russians were very well dug into there in Giri, and the Ukrainians were not expecting that, to say the least. But yeah, I mean, here, likely an expansion eastwards. Maybe they're going to reach their limit of advance at some point, but there's no guarantee that they will do that anytime soon.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Sucha is in this in between a lot of heights. They're not particularly high, but they're at least elevated. You can see it here in the topographical map of on Andrew's map. These heights, there are some south of Sucha, and also I think there's a ridge here. If there's going to be a defensive line, you kind of want to keep these heights under your control. So I expect them to try and secure most of this area. You also have north of Sucha, very important heights. So there's a lot of tactical points that Ukraine want to secure over time here. Of course, you would like to keep control over the main roads in and out of Sucha as well. So that's kind of probably the remaining one that is directly the remaining hub, or there's an intersection between two main roads that leads into Sucha.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I think we should move on. By the way, I know Andrew didn't fully update the map yet, also because basically people said like, maybe we should, wait a little bit before things are updated further. But there's a lot of very interesting geolocations that have been added the last few days. So I recommend everyone to go and check out Andrew's map. So yeah. Thank you so much, lovely lad. I hope to have you back soon. I see, by the way, there's a question that is relative to us. So. Yeah, of course. It's the topic we didn't touch on.
Yeah.
Do you want to address it quickly?
Yeah, I mean, we can do that pretty quickly. I mean, we've seen elements from a lot of units arrive here. The response was not as big as we expected. Most of the troops holding theirs have been destroyed. So, I mean, I would say, like, as a rough estimation, the Russians probably have around 5 to 7, potentially even a few more thousand troops, but generally still less than what Ukraine has still. That's the basic assessment.
What would you say the main tactic of the Russians have been?
They tried to counterattack at first, which, I mean, delayed the Ukrainians, didn't stop their advance. Now they're more focused on the defense, except from places like Malaya, Lochnia, which shows some very complicated front lines there. Kind of messed a little bit. Of course, Andrew has it all as a gray zone, but the Russians, the Ukrainians are near to the north. The Ukrainians are close to Krumsky Buki from the road from Malaya, Lochnia, and they've advanced from Zuravki up to what was Kanchuk, I think it was the town. And then the Russians managed to get like a battalion towards Malaya Lochnia. They've been trying to take it, but they haven't been successful there. It's a bit complicated. I don't believe the Russians can stay there for long. But yeah, I mean, their tactics currently, they don't really have many capabilities to counterattack. They can't do much except from hold here. They're trying to maintain the Ukrainians as much as they can. That's what I see.
Yeah, I think so. Andrew mapped this as a gray area, and I think it's fairly correct to assume it's a gray area because we've seen so many different geolocated and evidence that Ukraine is operating in this area. Also, of course, outside sometimes, but I don't think there's a defined front line anywhere here. But we have these.
Oh yeah.
These cities, small towns that have been, kind of center of defense for the Russians. Some like Koronevo, but this is where maneuver warfare is very useful because you don't have a defined front line yet, and until that solidifies, there's a lot more room for the attacking force compared to the rest of the front lines.
Yeah, I mean, a front line is basically only exists in static warfare. Like we see in Donbass, it's very static, position by position assaults. Right here, I mean, there are certain strong points like Koronevo, but rather than that, it's maneuver elements trying to outmaneuver the enemy, secure important points. But that's kind of basic essence of what's happening. Of course, maneuver is very complicated. I've studied it for many years myself. There are a lot of things that take part in it. Of course, the front line could be present during maneuver, but most of the time it isn't. Like we see here, there's no clear front line. If you try to draw front line, it's going to look very weird. Unit positions and stuff like that are more important in this case.
Yep. Okay. Thank you so much. I think we're gonna end it here, and then hopefully we'll have you back and talk more about similar topics soon.
Yeah, nice. I'm glad you guys had me here today, I guess.
Well, I hope so. I hope you enjoyed it, and follow Lovely Lad on Twitter if you're interested in similar updates. Yeah, this is your Twitter page. You're also doing some other stuff. I know that this whole Kursk offensive interrupted some in-depth studies that you've been doing of the Ukrainian offensive last year, but I think it's been a positive way to introduce you on the stream to not talk about last year's offensive. But yeah, you have some very interesting stuff here on that you've pinned to your profile about this, and I hope we can talk about it sometime soon on the stream.
Yeah,